I'm Renae Tate from Transform Life, and today I'm talking with the amazing Pam Bignold, who is not only one of our incredible speech therapists and managers here at Transform Life, but Pam is also an ex-Matilda's football player, which I find just super exciting. And I'm really excited to learn more from you, Pam, around, how you help, I guess, bridge that gap, like all the skills that you've learned being such a high level athlete and now as a speech therapist, and how you use those learnings and that knowledge and awareness that you have to help people achieve their goals. Because I think what you can offer with your therapy is just incredible because of the training and awareness and mindset that you have. And I know that you still do coaching as well in football, but I might hand over to you, Pam, and let you give me a bit of an overview about you as a person, as a professional, and a speech therapist, first of all.
Yeah, so my name's Pam, and look, I've been a speech pathologist for almost 20 years now, working mainly with people with disabilities, wide ranging ages. And yeah, I really love just working with people and helping them to achieve goals that they've set out, step by step, little bit at a time, little bit at a time.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Pam. And I think that's really important, as you said, that little bit of it at a time, because that's really how we make progress. And I think therapy is a bit like that, isn't it? It's like just having, I guess, clear goals to start with, and then having that ongoing support with your therapist to achieve those goals. But before we get into some of your tips on how you do that, can you tell us a little bit about your career as a Matilda and what you do now with coaching as well? Because I think it's all really blends
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, look, a lot of what I do in my personal life overlaps with my professional life. So I work in with young kids, 10, 11, 12-year olds, working in the football community with coaching academy teams. So the best kids that are around, teaching them football and how to play football, how to develop their skills so that they can potentially go on and have a professional career. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity when I was younger to um, play for my top team in my club, and then go on and represent Queensland. And from there, have the opportunity to represent them. It was a whirlwind time. It was, so exciting, having the opportunity to travel the world, visit places that I never thought I'd visit. Japan, China, Germany, Fiji, Cook Islands, um, and have the opportunity to travel and play football. And obviously a lot of hard work was involved in that, and I think that comes back to what I do professionally as well. There's every when we're working with families, it's not easy. We know that as therapists. There's a lot of hard work involved. But it's ultimately comes down to it's not sacrifices, it's choices. I often like to look at things like we don't make sacrifices, we make choices. And if we can think of it in that way, then you're always looking to make the best choice that you can in that situation, in the situation you're presented with. And for me, I made the choice to delay graduating from university, and I made the choice to not have much money as a football player back 20 odd years ago, 25 years ago. So yeah, it was, and now it really shapes, I suppose, what I do with everyone every day. I have a firm belief that we always have the opportunity to learn. We always have the opportunity to grow. It doesn't matter if you're, 10 or 11 years old and learning something for the first time, or you're in your mid-40s, mid-50s, and you're learning something new that you thought you knew, but you didn't. So yeah, I take that into my therapy sessions that I do every day, and into my coaching that I do in the afternoons. And have the firm belief that it doesn't matter. I might be teaching the kids, but the parents are learning at the same time. The other coaches are learning at the same time. I'm learning at the same time. So, and that's the same for therapy sessions. Yeah, kids are learning, parents are learning, young adults are learning, everyone's learning.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And having the best, having the right coach or the right therapist makes such a big difference to that whole journey and experience for those people as well. So I think it's fantastic what you can bring to the families that you work with. I know we were talking about that growth mindset with therapy and how to help people achieve their goals using that growth mindset. So can you share with us, Pam, like what would be your top 3 tips on when you're, working with families or children? What are the things that you, I guess, would like to share around achieving goals and having a growth
Yeah.
mindset?
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose, first of all, I think it's really important for parents and families and individuals to understand that the NDIS, it's not a golden ticket, and there are no magic wands. There are no magic wands in therapists. Um, we as therapists are not experts in your child or who you are, um, and it's all part of your child or your growth and development, the journey that you're on. Um, we would love to be able to flick a switch and use that a magic wand, but change can sometimes happen really slowly. But if you're thinking about the NDIS, getting funding, starting to engage with a therapist, thinking about it as the first step in your journey. And it can be really tough, but it can also be really rewarding when you see your kids or you achieve something that you didn't think was possible. So I think that's my first tip. Um, Second is coming into therapy with that mindset of growth. Um, it's not therapy. You should, as a parent, you should be learning as much as your child. And when you're in a therapy session, thinking about, well, what am I going to learn today? How can I better support my child every day? What can I take away from this therapy session that's going to help support me to help my child or my young adult? Um, and I think if we look at it from, what can I be doing in therapy sessions to learn myself, and then I can take that outside of therapy sessions to support my child's growth and learning. Um, 10 minutes, just 10 minutes of focused support or focused interaction with your child equals 60 hours of therapy a year, about 60 hours. So if you're taking away information from those therapy sessions and applying it, while you might only have funding for 50 hours of therapy, you can add an extra 60 hours just by adding 10 minutes of practice every single day. Um, and that practice can be as simple as 10 minutes of interaction. And I think my third biggest tip for therapy and that growth mindset and that journey that you're taking is that we all want to achieve huge goals, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming. The goal of playing for Australia, there are so many little steps along the way that you need to take. And um, what we know is that small changes, small achievements, small areas of growth and development, they end up creating big goals and big achievements. So sometimes focusing on those shorter term goals can help you make sense of how you'll get to that bigger goal, that bigger picture. Um, so look small, start small, and, it will all add up. It will create those big achievements.
Amazing. I love that. I think that's such good advice. And I think, yeah, so many things that I took from that because, as you said, the first one being just it can be slow, but I think the thing is just to keep going, to not give up because sometimes you could be on the verge of a breakthrough, and sometimes it's just that momentum that those continuing with that process really does allow you to achieve that. And I find that sometimes I like to start with, what are we celebrating today? And just even celebrating those small wins, because
Mm, yeah.
sometimes in therapy, we don't realize that you're actually making progress along the way. And those small wins become bigger and bigger wins, as you said. So I really love that. The other thing that I liked what you mentioned was around the parents getting really involved. And my background is parent led therapy, where I worked with hundreds of families with children with autism and really, empowered the parents to know how to help their own child. And that's something we do really well here at Transform Life, particularly if it's via telehealth, that model where we can empower the parents. And as you said, getting the parents to know how to help their own child and doing that every day, that's such a good analogy that 10 minutes a day is worth 60 hours of therapy. So, um, I'm such a big advocate for teaching the parents. It's a little bit like throw a man a fish and he can eat for a day, but teach him how to fish. He's got that
Yeah.
skill for life. And to me, that's what that is what you're talking about, is to get involved and learn how to really help your own child. And I love that it really empowers the parents as well to feel more confident knowing I actually know how to really bring out the best in my child, which is
Mm,
wonderful,
mm,
rather than feeling like they're always relying on, that therapy is much down the track too. So, um, and then
absolutely.
your last one about just, those small wins, as I mentioned before. I think that's spoken like a true champion because the journey to get to the big goals. And as you said, sometimes it takes a while, but it is that momentum that I guess builds momentum. And all of a sudden,
Yeah. Yeah.
you look back a few years later and go, "Wow, I can't believe how far we've come." So, I think they're really,
There,
really wonderful
yeah.
tips.
There are always going to be setbacks. Um, if I think about my life and career as a as a Matilda and as a football player and as a speech pathologist, um, there were setbacks, there were injuries, there were broken arms, which meant that I missed out on opportunities. Um, and you think about those, but ultimately the end goal, it was worth it. Absolutely worth it in the end. Is that and pushing through some of that adversity, some of those setbacks, and as you said, continuing on with your journey. Um, and that journey may have many ups and downs. But hopefully working with the right therapist, the right team, you can, it trends in that upwards direction.
Absolutely. And I think one of the nice things about therapy is also giving the parents, we're talking obviously about children, but whether it's parents or carers, that support as well is really wonderful because, I think that's a big part of it is for the parents and the carers to be able to continue to help implementing strategies and them feeling supported on that journey as well. So, yes, that's really
Mm.
wonderful, Pam. Well, I would love to talk to you all day and pick your brain about everything, but obviously, time wise, we're going to have to wrap up. But I love that. Now, before we go, do you have anyone that comes to mind? I suppose that you've worked with where you've helped them overcome some of those things that you've mentioned and sort of seen that end result?
Yeah, yeah. I can think of a I can think of a little girl I worked with a number of years ago. She was 2 years old, nonverbal, so didn't have any words, but was very, very bright. She had many, many ways to communicate, smiling, clapping her hands. She was pulling her parent to what she wanted. She would protest with growls or shaking her head. Um, first of all, we started with just teaching mum and dad, all of those different ways that she was communicating, showing them how 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 switched on and how bright she was. Yes, she wasn't using any words, um, but she was telling a lot. She was sharing a lot of information, and so we started with that education, and then we moved on to introducing picture exchange communication. And with mum's support at home, mum was using pictures um, every day, and she very quickly went on to, making choices and then associating symbols with the real objects. And then to the point where we had multiple pictures of all the different foods in the fridge, and she could just, point to the chocolate custard that she wanted. And then we went on to using sentence strips, and eventually onto, a communication device, and a high-tech communication device that aided her communication. Um, and, we saw over that period of time, as she was able to tell us what she wanted, what she was experiencing, those frustrations, those uh, you know, times of emotional outbursts really decreased. And by the time she started school, she was using a high-tech communication device, and she was able to request what she wanted, to respond to questions, to have conversations, backwards and forth. Complex, but in order to be able to communicate within the classroom, and that was a real success story, and what the difference was mum really giving it a go, and putting in that time at home every day, and she just grew in leaps and bounds.
That's lovely, Pam. One of the things that always stands out to me is when I talk to the therapists on our team, how they light up when you just completely lit up when you talked about her, and I just love it because you're changing her whole life really, and
Yeah.
had she have not had that support and a mum that was supporting her, sometimes we see that there's a lot of other challenges that come with that around behaviors and maybe not being engaged in school and, friends and social interactions. So it's such a flow on effect getting that support and the difference that you've
Absolutely.
made with that. So thank you for sharing that and your tips. And one thing I know you mentioned to me when we chatted last week was just one last thing to finish up on that I love when you said, I'm not there yet and something that you like to share. And I know I even had a moment
Mm.
myself last week where I said it to myself, well, you just don't have that just yet. So that might be a nice way to finish up if you want to
Yeah.
share that little tip.
Yeah, kids often say to me, at football, "Oh, I can't, I can't juggle the ball. I can't pass." Or in therapy, it's too hard. I can't. And I often just finish their sentence with, "I know it's hard, but you can't do it, but you can't do it yet. You can still learn. You've still got time to learn." And I think that's applicable to everyone, not just kids, but parents. You can't see it. You can't see how your child's communicating. You can't see it yet. Um, but in time, you can learn. And I think it's a really important thing to take away from every situation where you're feeling under pressure, or you don't know, you can't do something. There's an opportunity to learn. We don't become brilliant painters. We there are people who are naturally good at painting, but they don't become experts until they learn more. Um, so, you can't yet.
I love that. And it comes back to that growth mindset as well, which is wonderful. So,
Mm, mm.
thank you for sharing your tips today, Pam. It was wonderful to speak to you. And yeah, look, there's always more to talk about, but I'm sure that those tips will really go a long way with the people listening. So, thank you for joining us today, and
Thank
I
you.
look forward to thanks for coming along. And I look forward to speaking again in the next podcast. I hope you can join us. And thank you again, Pam, for all your wonderful advice.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And good luck to everyone.
Thanks, Pam.